Welcome to the Boardroom. A podcast from Miami for Miami. Sponsored by Physical Therapy Now. If it's happening in the health and legal business, we're talking about it. Andy Zapata holds a bachelor's degree from Florida International University and has had a distinguished 18-year career in the healthcare business. He's an expert in startup businesses, helping grow small and medium-sized medical centers in healthcare industries. He knows what he's talking about. This is the Boardroom. And here's your host, Andy Zapata.
What an amazing honor it is today to have Mrs. Sophye Fahrer in the house. Sophie, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. And, I can't wait to tell people who you are. But let me not ruin the surprise. Sophie, who are you?
Well, I am originally from New York. I was raised in Manhattan, but born in Cleveland, Ohio, and raised in New York City. Started my very first business when I was 8, so I could buy my parents their wedding gift when my mom married my stepdad. And so I created the original Grubhub, just saying. That is my fun fact. I negotiated a deal for all of the doormen. So there were 3 delis on my block. And I basically went to the 3 delis and I said, so whoever gives me the best price will get all of the business from all the doormen and all the maintenance guys. And I'll bring you all of the business. So I created a delivery service. So I got all of the doormen their stuff. And then I would bribe the maintenance guys to give me all the cans from each building and then go to Safeway and exchange all the cans. So I charged the doorman full price, get my tip, and my mom wakes up and she's like, "Where's my daughter?" And she's like, "Send her home right now." And the doormans are all like, no, we have walkie-talkies, we can all talk to each other. And she's like, "We just moved here from Ohio. What can an 8-year-old possibly doing?" Because I left a note saying, "Going out to make some dough, I'll be back in a while." And basically came upstairs and I was like, I didn't have any money to buy you a present. And she's like, "I would have given you the money." I was like, no, I got to get back down to my customers. I'll see you in a bit. And I used half of the money for their gift and the other half, there was a women's shelter around the corner. And I paid for the ladies to stay at the shelter. And I did it every single week until we moved from Beekman Place when I was 15.
Wow, what an amazing story. So at the age of 8, you were an entrepreneur with the entrepreneur spirit. But more important, because I hear, there's children that become entrepreneurs because they see their parents become entrepreneurs or because of one reason or another. But I've never heard anybody at the age of 8 going to donate some of the hard-earned money to the women's center that was around the corner so that they can live there. Is that what it was?
So that they could stay at the shelter, because you had to pay to stay at the shelter in New York City. So it was a nominal, amount of money, but, these women were homeless and I would go and I'd give half my money to them and, I would keep the other half for my, nicks and knacks.
So at the age of 8, you were an entrepreneur and a philanthropist, giving back to the community.
Yes.
And since that moment, Sophie, I feel like I'm talking to that 80-year-old girl now, and now you're a woman. And
Yes.
Sophie, just before we dig into it, what do you do for a living?
So up until recently, I was working for a law firm. I'm a licensed property manager or a community association manager. And I was working for a law firm doing hurricane recovery. So basically helping associations and individual homeowners make sure that they were able to file their claims with their insurance carriers. Oftentimes when they've been denied, our firm would go in and check to see what kind of physical and structural damage to make sure that their insurance companies would pay out the correct amount of money so we could make them whole again.
Wow.
So I guess
So you're in the legal. So you're in the legal field, paralegal, that would help the first party claims, meaning homeowners insurance or commercial building insurance, get their compensation so they can fix your property.
yes. Yeah,
Awesome, Sophie. So definitely a very important role that you played in, in your community. And but that I mean, that's important, right? I think that's important of what you do, because definitely we need attorneys, paralegals to make sure that that happens. But more importantly than that, like, can we step into a little bit about what happened starting February, March with you? Because I think that this is such a beautiful story. That's why I asked you to come onto the show. Can we step into that with your permission?
absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
Sophie. So Sophie, come February, March, the pandemic hits, COVID-19 hits, and what happens to you?
So in February, I had actually starting in January, I'd gotten bronchitis a couple of times and I had gotten pneumonia. And we had gone to Jamaica in January or end of December, beginning January. And I just been sick for a couple of months, just fighting something. And come the end of March, I went for a flu test and I'm sick again. And we're moving out of our condo because we sold it. And I can't kick it. I can't breathe. And so after coming back with a negative flu test, I really, really can't breathe this time. And so I went to Cleveland Clinic and to get a COVID test, and it came back positive. And then for the
So
next,
you were so wait, so you were one of the first people that were diagnosed
yeah,
early March with COVID.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and when you got diagnosed, right, at the Cleveland Clinic, like were you like, okay, I got COVID, it's okay, or were you like freaking out? Because if I had COVID in March, I would have been freaking out right when the pandemic hit, or did you not understand the severity of it at that point? Walk me
Um,
through what's going through your head.
yeah, I definitely was freaking out. I have underlying medical conditions that were managed by medication. So I have a heart condition, and then I have asthma when I get bronchitis. So my doctors prescribed a whole slew of medication for me. And he basically said, if you go into the hospital, I don't expect that you'll come out alive. So I want you to stay at home. And I have a nebulizer at home so I could give myself my own breathing treatments. And he gave me a protocol to follow.
Wow.
Um, so
That's
I,
amazing. Wait, so wait, just one second. So I'm
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, Sophie. So
no,
the doctor tells you to stay home, right? Do you think that that was the right decision?
I do. My husband and I actually created a password in case I felt that I needed to go to the hospital, because I probably would only be able to get out one word. And
Wow.
due to the asthma and due to the fact that I couldn't breathe. So I was scared enough not to want to go into the hospital, that if my oxygen level, I didn't want to be intubated because I kept hearing how if once you go on a ventilator, most people don't come off. So
Right.
that was my biggest fear. So
Wow,
that's
Sophie. All right.
definitely
So
why
so
I wanted to be at
so you're
home.
home, you get a bunch of medication, and what happens to you after that?
So I, it goes against everything that you're normally taught. You know, when you get sick, you're supposed to stay in bed. You're supposed to, drink. You drink lots of fluids anyway, but they tell you to get up every 15 minutes to keep your blood flowing. You're supposed to hit yourself on your chest. I had 3 different inhalers, nebulizer treatments going pretty much every half an hour so I could breathe. Um, Drinking hot tea every 15 minutes. Small little walks around the room, but your body aches. You get terrible migraines. Um, the coughing. You have to sleep and be in bed at an angle, because otherwise the fluid rests in your lungs and it hardens. That's actually what winds up killing
Wow.
most people.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're drowning for 6 weeks. I was like that,
Wow.
just in terrible fear of, I just couldn't breathe. Like when I would try to speak, it was always gurgly. And it was just the most awful experience I've ever had, just struggling for every breath, fighting.
And so, I mean, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That is a horrible experience. I mean, I'm not sure if I had to go through that. I had the flu, but I'm not sure if it was COVID or early in January, which was very painful. But walk me through, like, okay, so now you know it's COVID. You're living with your husband. Did he get sick as well?
He did not, and they wouldn't
Okay.
test him either.
Right, because he
We
had no symptoms.
he had no symptoms, but even at that point, you know, you were supposed to be tested if you came in contact with someone who tested positive. But even under those circumstances, it was very difficult to get a test. And even at the end, when I had started to feel what you would call better, and no fever
Right.
is really the only better part that I got, because my symptoms didn't go away, not completely. Some of them did, but the only real marker that went away was that I didn't have a fever anymore. It was a battle to get me a COVID test to prove that I wasn't a carrier.
Right.
And I actually was working from home at the time, and my office was really great about it. But it was the scariest thing I've ever been through.
And
And
Sophie, and it's been 10 months now, right? Because I want to step into this a little bit deeper. It's been 10 months.
yes,
But you know, tell us how, before you answer this question, tell us, like, it's been 10 months and you're still having symptoms, right? And so we're going to talk about what a long hauler is. And then, you know, I just want to say, for those of you who are listening, just stay tuned, because from something that is such, you know, horror and nightmare that's happened to somebody so beautiful like Sophie, something beautiful has come out of this. And we're going to talk about what the butterfly effect is just a few minutes. But Sophie, walk me through 10 months after COVID hit you. What's going on, like, you know, through your body?
so now I have more arrhythmias than I've ever had. So they've added a heart medication. It turns out that I'm now only getting 50% oxygen when I sleep.
And you didn't have any of these problems. You were like a healthy individual, right? Before COVID.
Yeah, so I have something called POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which was managed by a beta blocker. I was, you know, functioning normally. I finally had gotten everything under control, and I was doing well, and I was working for this law firm, and it was great. I was doing wonderful. And all of a sudden COVID happened, and it reactivated the POTS. And I had had some arrhythmias before, but we had gotten them under control. Now, just recently, in the last 20 days, I had 30 arrhythmias, and lasting, and this has never happened before, actually. They would last for 30 seconds before. I have a loop in my chest that records the length of any kind of activity. They're lasting up to 10 minutes now. So that's never happened to me before. So as the time has been going on, my symptoms and what's happening to me is getting worse. So I've never had problems breathing at night.
So now you have problems breathing at night. You have arrhythmias. What else are you having now?
Seizures.
So you've never had seizures before.
I had a grand mal seizure once, and that's because they removed a medication from me. But prior to that, no, I had never had seizures. So
Okay, so now you have arrhythmias, you have breathing difficulties, you have seizures. What else?
Migraines, brain fog, and sheer fatigue and exhaustion, where I will wake up from a night's sleep and I feel that there are cinder blocks on my legs and I
Wow.
just cannot get out of bed.
And you're not eating
And
different. You're not doing anything different than you were doing in January when you were in Jamaica.
no, not at all. And I've lost about 16, 17 pounds
And for those
from,
people, that say, maybe it's she has a mental disorder, or maybe she's making it up in her head. Like you were here and now you're here. Nothing in your diet, nothing in your routine has changed.
no. And I go to physical therapy. I do all of the right things. So I eat well. I used to be in the pool every day. And to understand, as I was trying to rehab back from COVID, I would go out for my walks and just even small ones just to build up my stamina. And you would think that I tried to run a marathon. And, I'd look at the stairs to get back up to the apartment, and I'd have to rest halfway up the stairs. But it's not because of a lack of wanting. It's a lack of that I can't get up there.
So let's step right into it. Like, this happens to you, and then what happens with like all these masks that you acquired? Like, walk me through what made you do this. How did you end up with so many masks? And then what made you want to like help so many people?
So while I was laying there with COVID, I made a deal with my grandma Sophie. So the reason it's called Sophie's Butterfly Effect is because my grandmother Sophie, that woman had 400 people at her funeral, and she passed away in April. She passed away in October. I was born in April. So if there was anybody who I wanted to be like, it was her. She was the woman who, if you didn't have enough to pay for your groceries, she would forego her groceries so you could buy yours. And I've always wanted to be like her. And that is who I always try to aspire to be, to make her proud.
Wow, that is
So,
a beautiful, beautiful. And your grandma was also Sophie. Is that what I heard you say?
yes, yeah.
That is beautiful, Sophie. And wow, what a story. And so
So,
now I know where the philanthropy comes from.
yeah. So she was an incredible woman. She was the first woman bus driver in Ohio. She was the entrepreneur. She saw an opportunity, she would do it. And she was just quite a character.
Wow.
And I was laying in bed and I said, all right, Grandma, if I live through this, I'll make you a deal. I will do everything in my power to make sure that no one else becomes like me. And I watched as New York City just, blew up, basically. And it was like watching 9/11 happen all over again. And this is something that I could control. So I
Right.
had connections in the medical field, unfortunately, because I've been
Been
in
around.
treatment for in the medical field. And I decided to take the profits from the sale of our condo and buy 200,000 masks. And my brother's a nurse, my sister-in-law is a nurse, and I bought masks in order to
Wow.
make
Hold on a
sure.
second. Hold on. Let me step into this because you
Yeah.
just said something kind of like just flew by. You took the profit from the condo that you sold and you bought 200,000 masks,
Yep.
not 1,000, not 2,000, 200,000 masks.
Yeah.
And you did this. You must have paid a fortune for these masks because even like one mask is like $5, or it was at that time. Like
They were not cheap.
that is a lot of masks, Sophie. And so your brother and sister are nurses, and you're donating these masks to them, or what happens then?
Yeah, I started to donate them. I created a website called Healthcare Safety Supply, because I wanted people to know that they were good, viable, trustworthy masks. And from my sick bed, I started to reach out to people to, sell low cost masks, not what they were being extorted for in the beginning. People were paying $7, $10, which was insane. And I was like, no, I will charge an amount that is adequate, that covers my costs and allows me to give them away to first responders for free.
So what I'm hearing is you had access, because I didn't have, look, I'm a healthcare provider. We have a franchise. We have over 200 physical therapists, maybe 400 employees. And I didn't have access to masks. I had to buy masks out of a pickup truck in Hialeah, like a drug deal. I was literally like looking to see who was behind me, handing out cash, getting boxes of and throwing them in my truck, and then hauling ass out of Hialeah. Like, I didn't have access to these masks, but you had access to these masks, which is a beautiful thing. So in your head, you're like, I see there's a problem. People don't have access to these masks. How can I help some of these first responders and caregivers? So you buy them and then you're giving them away.
Yes.
Wow, what an amazing heart that you have.
So it was a matter of just preventing people from becoming like me, and also providing health first responders with what they need. And
just to step in really quick, I literally paid $20 an N95 mask at a time, because we needed to pass an inspection and I needed to have an N95 mask, and I paid $20 for one N95 mask. It was
that's
crazy.
crazy. And that's what broke my heart. I mean, I was sitting there struggling, and I vowed that if I made it through, and then even after, I was out of the woods, or, I was, didn't have COVID officially anymore. It's a virus, but the virus leaves damage. I mean, it wreaks havoc. And what they've come to find out in many studies across the United States, across the world, long haulers are comprised of primarily people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And they don't even know that they necessarily have the damage. So what they did is they took huge number of people who were asymptomatic or had mild symptoms, and they took, x-rays of their hearts, or their lungs rather, and did echocardiograms and different tests on their hearts. And they find primarily that there is early congestive heart failure, arrhythmias, and some sort of damage that has been left that the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and 40-year-olds didn't even know they had.
Right.
So,
right. So that's what you call a long hauler, is a person that gets the virus, and then thinks he gets over it, but then now there's secondary conditions, secondary diagnosis.
Yeah, and it's basically you're left with conditions that you normally wouldn't have, and they can range from diabetes, which is insane, to heart, lung, neurological deficits, hair loss. I've lost so much hair. It's so scary.
Wow.
It's so bizarre. I never really had a problem with my sinuses before. Now I have to do sinus rinses and nasal sprays. And I mean, just the randomness of things that I've experienced and that I've seen other people experience is the crazy part, is that the longer that this goes on, more things start showing up.
So if you had to give advice to some of the people out here listening, like, what advice would you give them with all this experience that you have? And then also, what are you doing with all the rest of these masks? By the way, so let's start, let's because it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to the listeners right now?
Well, everybody seems to think it's no big deal if I get COVID, because, I'm not going to die from it. I'm young. It's not, that big of a deal. I'll be asymptomatic. That is the worst mistake you can ever make, because that is not the case. It is very, very, very possible, especially because long haulers are comprised of people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And why would you risk that? Why would you risk having a long-term health condition in your life. This is not something that you play with. So it is a big deal. So all it takes is wearing a mask. I mean, let's be honest, right? You put a seatbelt on, is that really a big deal? No. Right. Wearing a mask is not a big deal. This is, we're getting
it's safety for you, safety for others. That's it. Just wear a mask.
And that's the thing, how would you feel if you gave it to someone else? And that's really what a mask is, because there are two different kinds of masks, right? So there's the 3-ply surgical, which protects others from you.
Right.
It doesn't protect you from others. So by you wearing a mask, you're doing a kindness for someone else, because that is what the purpose is. So by wearing a mask, you're protecting other people from you.
But you can still get sick because it goes in through the sides.
Well, and that's, there are really cute TikTok videos out there of how to close the sides. And it takes like 2 seconds to look those up, and how to close the sides of the mask. The KN95 mask protects both ways. So that way, if you are in an area where there are no mask mandates and people will not stay 6 feet away from you, that is your best bet, because it protects both ways.
Got it. So Sophie, what does the future look like for you and the butterfly effect? And then what are you doing with the butterfly effect now? And what does the future look like for you?
So right now, we donated masks to 5 of your locations, and we hope that to talk to your other 35 franchises and see what we can do with them, and also making the masks available to be sold and purchased through your locations as well, to keep the public safe at a reasonable cost, so that way everybody can stay safe, because that is the goal, right? Get the vaccine, and once we reach a certain percentage, then we can all take our masks off and, God willing, get back to normal life. That's always been the goal, but that's months away. So just because some people are getting vaccinated does not mean you can stop wearing a mask. You still have to do that until further notice. Keep wearing your masks.
Well, Sophie, first of all, thank you so much for considering physical therapy now as, you call second responders, right? Second line of defense, because we're not doctors, we're not nurses, we're not in the hospital, but we get patients like yourself, who's actually a patient of ours, coming to physical therapy because their body is so tight after the COVID, or because they have respiratory or cardiac issues afterward. And so we're getting, a wave of people with secondary conditions coming to physical therapy now. And you are one of those patients that is getting physical therapy. And just want to say thank you so much for your donation. And like the fact that you have still masks, and you want to give them to, either donate them to the people that are really in need, or get them out to corporations like mine at a very good cost. Where can people find your website? Like, what is the website again?
So it's www.healthcaresafetysupply.com, or Sophie's Butterfly Effect, and it's Sophye. So everybody spells it wrong.
Sophie and then an S, right? Sophie's Butterfly Effect.
So it's SOPHYES Butterfly Effect. And we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. So basically anywhere you go, you can find us, but we are on the website, and we are going to hold the next event to give away masks to Broward Health Medical Center nurses, because I was hospitalized for seizures and arrhythmias in July. So we want to give our thanks to those nurses in that cardiac ward who kept my heart going, and just to, the nurses in general, of course. So we're gonna be on iHeartRadio. I'm hoping that PT Therapy Now will join me, of course, and just gonna continue to keep people safe. We've been receiving donations, which has been really great. We got a $500 donation from somebody yesterday. It was the largest one I've gotten, which was, I started crying. And when I give masks away to nurses, that's often their response, is that they want to try to come and hug me. And they're so shocked that people care enough to, give them masks, because nobody thinks to say thank you to them. Because by the time people get to the nurses who care for them, they're too sick. And so for someone
when
to
they
go
get
out
out, and when they get out, they forget.
right. And, so for someone to do an overt act of kindness before they need them is shocking to them. And that is very, very sad. And so anything, by buying a mask from us, you're saving a life there. And that prevents them from having to quarantine from their family. So you can get masks anywhere, but when you do it from us, you also get to see the pictures of the nurses that you're saving. So you become part of the solution, and you feel part of the movement.
So you buy masks from Sophie's Butterfly Effect, and you could, that way, with the money that you make there, you can continue to donate masks and supplies to the nurses, first and second responders. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
Sophie, what an incredible heart that you have. I am honored to have you here, and just I'm so happy and excited to know you and the magic that you're doing for the community. I just want to thank you on behalf of like PT Now, our entire team, for that incredible donation, the patients that are going to be able to get access to these masks, and just thank you. But more importantly, I want to thank one more person, your grandmother, for having such a beautiful heart. And her name is also Sophie. And what a beautiful story, Sophie. Thank you so much for being here. And any final from you that you want to say?
Just just do your part. It's something so small that can really mean the difference between someone's life. And I'll tell you, I actually know where I got it. I'm fairly certain that it was somebody was coughing in an elevator with me, and I was wearing a 3-ply surgical mask, which only protects the other person from me, oddly enough. So your part is so small. It could save hundreds of thousands of lives. And just wear a mask, change it daily if you can. And, help me make the difference in other people's lives and save our healthcare workers, because guess what? We need them.
Wow. Thank you so
So,
much. And yes, we do need our healthcare workers that we love very much, our nurses, our doctors. We love you. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you to the people like you that are helping support them, to help us live and stay alive. So, Sophie, thank you so much. Everybody, sophiesbutterflyeffect.com, or you can visit her other website, which is
healthcaresafetysupply.com.
healthcaresafetysupply.com. Sophie,
Yes.
thank you so much. We will talk again soon.
Yes. Thank you all. And say thank you if you see your nurse or your doctor.